Hi everyone, welcome to 23rd Mind TV Summer Edition.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Stockholm, and we've decided to move out of our library. It's very hard for us, but what can you do? The sun is shining, the gulls are laughing at us, and the flowers are blooming. And we have a great show for you in the sense that we have lots of our own stuff and also other beautiful stuff that people have sent us, as per usual. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and we're fortunate to have this terrace so that we can go outside without actually having to go outside. So this is enough. This is enough for us for now.
Yeah, and what's happened since the last time? Well, a lot of things have happened. We've been very diligent and productive, and just basically still in this self-imposed isolation, which has been, very, very productive for us. So one of the biggest things in terms of our own creativity has been the release of not one album but two albums, Switching and Mirrors. And in the box that we've made, which looks like this, contains two CDs, one of each album, and a lot of beautiful stuff. An original collage by Vanessa, prints of some other collages, 5 photographs, unique text by me, etc., etc. These albums have been released digitally. They're available on Bandcamp and very soon on iTunes and Spotify and all the usual suspects. But in this box, which only exists in 8 signed and numbered copies, you'll get hands-on tangible things. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the origins of the Switching Mirrors project.
Yeah, so in 2016, my book Switching Mirrors came out on Trapar. Carl offered to publish my poetry, and what we decided to do once the book was published was bring the book around on a trip that we took to Portugal, and I read cut up poems from the book in various really magical locations around Portugal, and those readings were set to music by Carl and became this album. So all of these recordings are from 2016. We went to amazing places. We recorded one in Pessoa's house. We recorded one at Evola, Sintra.
Yeah, in Sintra there's this beautiful, strange, psychedelic castle, actually, or garden, Quinta de Regaleira, and just very, very evocative places. Perfect. It's like they're made for being poetic and intuitive and creative. So it was great to actually record these things there, and also a great hotel that the same architect who made Quinta de Regaleira had made at about the same time up in the north of Portugal. And we recorded all over the place, and also in nature, by these great cromlech stones and ancient Roman temples, and it's really like a magical mystery trip in the name of poetry and cut-ups. So it's been a while since we made these things, so that's why it's extra fun now to have them released digitally and also in this box form. And I think that if you ever heard what we're up to, what we're doing in terms of meshing cut-ups with music, I think you're going to enjoy both albums. They're basically one album, but there's so many tracks that we had to sort of divide them a little bit. But Switching and Mirrors, they're both available, Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, and also we still have a few copies left of the box, so you should get them before they're completely gone.
Yeah, and Portugal has this wonderful history. Like Carl mentioned, there's so many different kind of eras of history all in this one place. and we visited a lot of them, and there's a great necromantic element as well. We visited a bunch of ossuaries, and we visited a monastery that had the remains of Inés de Castro and Don Pedro. And if you don't know the story of Inés de Castro and Don Pedro, I suggest you look it up. I can actually post a link to it that accompanies this episode. She's the original corpse bride.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll say. Right of love. No bonds, no of both genders. So keyboards and flute. Thee for us two, so easy to. Of thee, the cut, way. At least primarily looking at as and the project. Live in heaven, like me and be, and into the future. Well, it's already. Other sentences, crowds, psychoanalysts, quickly or slowly, the humans. Some, have you seen the eye machine? I think our goal, one of them, strangers anyway, are, to you in a visual, hermaphrodites, within itself, Geisen coined deceptual, needs to be, difficult parts, a kiss, inspired by a couple of hermaphrodite, is the symbol, never before, of DNA, and the up our expectations of, definitely inspired the original human. Question became skills when it come, a space of words. I thought I would come. Child is full of grace. Same time using has been really discourse surrounding. More it would, never done, but in which she, same, is not to, is, whatever, motivation of every, androgyny. So that was Rite of Love, which was recorded at the Boca de Inferno in Portugal.
Yeah, it's an interesting place where allegedly Fernando Pessoa took Aleister Crowley at one point in order for Crowley to stage suicide for PR purposes. I don't know if that was successful or if it's even true, it's hard to know. But Pessoa was certainly there, and it was kind of a guiding light for us in a way. His writings are phenomenal, both the poetry and the Book of Disquiet, which is more like meandering roamings of his soul. Highly, highly beautiful book that sort of guided us on this Portuguese trip or trek. So again, check out Switching and Mirrors. It's one album, 2 albums, whatever. It's one great experience of cut up and great ambient and experimental music. Yeah, and we have also made the previous release available on digital, meaning Vanessa's collaboration with Douglas Lucas called Sound 23. You remember the previous box that we did, which was Sound 23. Now that album has been made available on iTunes and Spotify and Bandcamp and all these places too.
We still have a few of the box left as well.
That's right, and they should move fairly soon, so make sure to pick one up. Also, what we've been busy with on a long-term level, and we're going to keep on doing that, is to make sure that as books sell out and as products sell out, that they will still remain. In terms of records, it's kind of easy when something tangible is gone. People are accustomed with Spotify and our Bandcamp and things like that, so that the albums will always remain available. And the same also goes for the books. When they actually sell out, we will make sure that they are available still in perhaps slightly different form, but still like this new edition of Fenris Wolf 7, for instance, and Mother Have a Safe Trip now available as paperbacks, so that people can always buy them. And especially important with Fenris Wolf, I think, is that many of the issues that sold out they fetched really high prices on eBay and similar places, and although it's honoring in a way, it's much better that people can access the information. Of course, it's more than merely information, but to keep them available as inexpensive paperback books. So all of the old Fenrises will be available both as ebooks but also as paperbacks, and that goes for basically all the books. My novel Mother Have a Safe Trip just came out as a paperback too, so check out those books. They are well, I'm partial, but they are great.
And this, I think, the cover photo is a picture from Portugal, isn't it?
No, that's from Thailand.
Oh, from Thailand.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about Thailand soon.
Yeah.
Rendering Unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I have done so many Rendering Unconscious podcasts in isolation, as everybody is home, so everybody now has time to talk, which has been amazing. It's kept me very busy. I will try to name all the ones that I have done since the last 23rd Mind TV. I spoke with Vamek Volkan and his new book that just came out, Large Group Psychology. I spoke with Bhante Sanata Vihari Bhikkhu about Buddhism and psychoanalysis. I spoke with S. Alfonso Williams again, one of my favorite guests. He talked about ethics, film, Black Lives Matter movement, the American Uprising, activism. So definitely check out his work. I spoke with Jason Josephson Storm, who's a professor over at Williams College, and about his book called The Myth of Disenchantment, which you can guess what that's about. Eve Watson, who's a psychoanalyst in Ireland. She's been putting on online group sessions and seminars to kind of help psychoanalysts who have now all been forced to work from home quite suddenly because of the pandemic, and kind of helping support them through the process of that transition. And she's been doing wonderful work with her group, the Freud Lacan Institute, out of Ireland. So definitely keep an eye out for her work. She was actually one of our guests at our first Psychoanalysis Art in the Occult conference in London as well. So I'm going to post her lecture up from that as well soon. Mm-hmm. I've been posting all of the videos from the talks so that they're available on YouTube, not only so people can watch the conversation, but even more importantly because YouTube provides a transcription of the discussion so that you can read the discussion as well. I spoke with Damian Patrick Williams, and he talked about technology and anti-Black surveillance. Jenny Butler out of Ireland, she spoke about 21st century Irish paganism. Stephen Reisner, who's a psychoanalyst from New York, he has a podcast as well called Madness, where psychology and capitalism collide. So his episode with me is amazing, his podcast is amazing, and he was recently interviewed for Michael Moore's podcast Rumble, so check all of those out as well. My friend Jason Hoff, who's a poet and writer in Brooklyn, he just put out a book called Bent Book, which is a queer anthology. And he's also been doing cut-ups with his own writing, queer-specific writing, and merging those with photos of his ancestors. So we talked about that process and how much he's discovered about his ancestry since he's been doing that process. And I spoke with another poet and writer, Tom Bland, whose latest book is called The Death of a Clown. He's a really interesting character as well, as he kind of came through to psychoanalysis through like performance, including going to clown school and also doing live performance and theater and contemporary work, performance art in that way. And Catherine Marshall Woods is my latest guest. Her episode was just released. She's a psychologist in Washington, D.C. She has her own show called A Healthy Mind, and she consults on films to make sure that films, the settings, the characters, the topics are more psychologically astute, make sure the characters have depth and like the relations between characters are really well portrayed, as well as the relationship with therapists and psychologists and the way psychology is used in film. So she's doing amazing work as well. And she also talked about the current American uprising, Black Lives Matter, race, and ancestry.
Yeah, and speaking of film, I would like to plug one of my documentaries about filmmaker Kenneth Anger. Those of you who know me and who know us know about the respect that we have for not only the integrity but also the actual films of Kenneth Anger. So from 2014 and onwards, I sort of worked on a film about him and his work, and that came out last year. It's a film called CINEMAGICIAN, Conversations with Kenneth Anger, and it takes us through his life, memories from him growing up and moving to Europe and starting to make films, and his relationship to Aleister Crowley, or the teachings of Aleister Crowley, and how these were merged with his films. It's a fascinating story, and one of the films that I'm most proud of having made, because he can be a kind of a tricky figure to sort of nail down in a way, but since I allowed it to take a long time, I think I managed, and it turned out into a revealing documentary about a genius filmmaker, Kenneth Anger. So please check out CINEMAGICIAN, Conversations with Kenneth Anger. Here's the trailer.
Creating things makes me happy, because I'm an artist who needs to create to feel fulfilled. And as far as the public goes, they could take it or leave it. In other words, I don't think about them. I think about myself, their personal statements. Art is created out of the necessity to express the soul of mankind in a creative way. Let's say, is a rattlesnake evil? Well, it's dangerous. And that's what I think about movies, that they have that ability to seduce in perhaps sometimes not a good way.
All right, so now we'll talk a little bit about some of our friends' work. This coming Monday, July 20th, is our friend B. Futon's birthday. It's also the eclipse in Cancer, which we both are Cancers, so lucky us. And I wanted to talk a little bit about B's work. B splits his time between the UK and Bangkok, and he has a lot of amazing work that kind of is a fusion between these two cultures. He's creating these amazing Thai capsules that have a whole story and history of their own. Go to his website, High on Platforms, to check that out, and his website, The Bee Now. And he also has a band called Futon, that's a kind of a fusion as well. And just amazing work in like entertainment, fashion, music. His aesthetics are amazing. So follow him on Instagram at bfuton. I'll put links to everything in the text accompanying this. And also, because of the new moon on Monday, my friend Christine O'Day, also known as Ammo, also known as the Fitness Witch LA, she does these amazing yoga classes on every new and full moon, and she's typically done them in the evening of the moon, so I wasn't able to participate since I've moved over here because the time difference from California to Sweden is quite lengthy. And I can't really do yoga at 3 o'clock in the morning, but she's been such a doll to create a class on the morning for her, 10 a.m., which is 7 p.m. here, so that I can participate in her yoga classes. And I've wrangled some friends to participate with me, and you're all welcome to come as well. The next one's this Monday, the 20th, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is 6 p.m. in Britain and 7 p.m. Central European Summer Time. And what we do is create an intention and create a sigil out of that intention, and then draw a tarot card to go along with our intention, and then practice yoga with these intentions in mind. And it's a really amazing practice that really helps keep you centered and manifest your will.
And I would also like to tie in with, we talked about B, and we had such great times with B in Thailand last year. It brought to mind many great memories, because now that we're stuck here, even though it's summer and nice now, the heat here in Stockholm brings back memories from Thailand and the good times we had with B, and also together with our beautiful friend, little Annie Bandes. That said, we also wanted to push Annie's work, because it's simply so great. Most people know Annie from her music, of course, such a talented singer, interpreter, showwoman, an incredible artist with a really magical presence on stage or on record too. But she's also a visual artist. She's a painter, and we are really proud to have a few of her artworks, and they're just fantastic. So you should probably check out this art book, Meditation in Chaos, by little Annie, on the fantastic publishing company Timeless, and it's photographs and paintings, and it's just very colorful stuff that's remarkable. And it just goes to show that people who are creative in one way are usually creative in other ways too, but they may hold them back, or they may be fully flaunting of all their flowers in the bouquet. Annie is one of those multi-talented people that's a real honor to know and integrate in our own life. So we cherish the memories from Thailand together with Annie and B. There will be many more moments to come when the world gradually opens up to socializing in the flesh and in real time.
Another amazing thing that's been happening during the quarantine is that because of circumstances, a lot of places have been forced to do classes or courses online, events online that they usually do in person. And for me, that's been really great as far as the Freud Museum London, because they usually could only attend their classes in person, but now they've been giving amazing courses online, and pretty much every weekend, sometimes a couple in the same week. Like last weekend, my friend Jordan Osserman did a class on gender and trends, and that was amazing. It was 2 days. And then Mary Wild, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, she does courses at the Freud Museum called Projections. She also has a podcast called Projections with Sarah Cleaver. But her courses she's been doing probably once a month on different directors. Like there was one on Lars von Trier, there was one on David Lynch. Right now, this weekend, she's doing a course on the Uncanny film, and she has another one coming up in August. So I would definitely go to the Freud Museum website and check out Mary's classes in particular, but all of the courses they've been putting on. One of my favorite psychoanalysts, Darian Leader, just gave a talk about the global crisis and pandemic. So there's been a lot of really timely and pertinent events going on.
And it just goes to show the ingenuity of people in dire times, because of course you could do all these things before the pandemic and the imposition of the isolation, but I think the blooming of all of these offers and possibilities of using the internet is amazing. And in a way, I hope we're doing the same thing by just reaching out more online, because it's basically the only way. I have also passively taken part of Mary's classes because Vanessa has been so giddy on the couch and watching so many great films, and I think also this is a wonderful time for self-education, for educating yourself with the help of knowledgeable people. It's a beautiful thing, and I wish that most people would actually use this time of discrepant continuity to educate themselves and just learn about things that they probably wouldn't have learned about if things had been normal, so to speak. Speaking of normality, I just wanted to show this massive, it's one of those massive Taschen books. It's called Cabinet of Curiosities, and as usual with Taschen and their big art books, they're very, very flamboyant, and this suits this subject very, very well. The Cabinets of Curiosities is something that existed, and I guess still does exist in a way, but during the 17th and 18th centuries, mainly very wealthy people, including royal courts, collected these first of all items from around the world, rare, weird things, whether it was taxidermied exotic animals or just strange art, but they were all contextualized in not an art context, although they are of course in an art context, but they were contextualized in this thing of mind-blowing experiences, and it became a status symbol to have what the Germans called a Wunderkammer, a chamber of wonders filled with these weird things from around the world, because this time normal people certainly didn't know what existed out in the world, and there was still exploration going on. So to have your own little wonder chamber or a cabinet of curiosities became definitely a status symbol that you were someone to count, you were someone to be reckoned with as having perhaps not insight about what was beyond the band, but you certainly had money enough to buy things from beyond the band. And this book is something I've been waiting for a long time, because although there have been other books, Taschen has the editorial muscles, the publishing muscles, to really put together definitive volumes. And this is, for me, like pornography, to see the kind of skill that people had a long time ago already, probably doesn't exist anymore, to put together these really magical things, also in magical contexts, that in a way transcends our normal petit bourgeois conceptions of what art is. This for me is true art because it's magical, and it is put together with such skill, amazing technical skill, and contextualized in again a sense of wonder. When were you last at an art gallery and left with a sense of wonder? I haven't experienced that in a long time, so I'm very happy about this book. I'll be happy in my chair flipping through this book, and it will give me satisfaction about knowing that once upon a time there was wonderful art happening. Going from highbrow to perhaps low life, we received this wonderful fanzine. It's a little booklet, and also contains a CD called Bukowski on Bukowski, or Bukowski on Bukowski. I have never been a super fan of Bukowski's writing. I can certainly see where it comes from and appreciate it. It's a kind of a very unique beatnik kind of thing, but far too dipsomaniac for my tastes. However, this is lovingly put together, and it has, like I said, a CD of him reading his own stuff, and it also contains book reviews of from other publishing companies and other authors. So this is again a resurgence, I would say, of fanzine culture that I really appreciate, and we're very, very happy to receive these things, and we will absolutely talk about them. Bukowski on Bukowski is of course, if you like Bukowski, you should get this, but even if you don't, you should get it to support this kind of endeavor, which is basically a literary fanzine that also has a CD. So please check that out. It's really, really worthwhile. And then when we talked about Vanessa's collaboration with Douglas Lucas, you held up this record, which is now, I think, sold out, but we got a copy and we're happy about that. And it's also available on Bandcamp. The label is called Humanhood Recordings, and they have their own Bandcamp where you can listen to these tracks. It's basically one long track on one side and then a short track and a blank vinyl side on the other side. It's really beautiful as an object. And Douglas makes these, I would call them, sound collages or mixes of what could be called noise in a way, but it's not really noise in any kind of brutally aggressive, kind of Merzbau vein. It's much more organic, and the sounds are quite wonderfully analog. I don't know how he puts this together, and that maybe should be a secret, but for me, listening to this album takes me to a warm, introspective place filled with twists and turns and little breaks that make you go, whoa, what happened? It's not for passive entertainment, it's for active listening, and it's a very, very pleasurable experience, much more so than sticking your head into a hornet's nest of aggressive noise. This is if there is such a term, I would call this human noise. It's very human, and I like it. It's a warm experience with great sounds that I would call analog. I don't know if they are, but it gives me the impression more of a sound collage than an intellectual mixing board. So check that out.
Yeah, he even says here on the back, listen via headphones for full effect.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think that may sum up the summer edition of 23rd Mind TV. We would of course like to really thank our patrons at Patreon who are making this possible, and everybody who sent us stuff that we talk about, and we should thank ourselves too for being here still and making art so that we can talk about it, and of course all the viewers. Thank you for being out there, and we hope you enjoy the show, and it won't be long before there will be another episode coming out. Bye. Thank you.